Welcome back to the White Gray Black Weekly Manga Podcast. My name is Bruce, the producer of the White Gray Black YouTube channel. With me again this week is Gautam.
What's up?
This is a podcast where we talk about all the latest releases in Japanese manga, and since you are listening, you get to be a part of this crazy little manga book club. Thank you for being here. This week, we are talking about One Piece Chapter 1085, which was Buck Wild, Sakamoto Days Chapter 120, which has been on a roll for the past, since the beginning, and Mashle, Magic and Muscles Chapter 157. Exciting shonen stuff today.
It has been a good week.
Before that, let's do a quick little segment on the news. Only a couple of minor news segments here. I read a leak on Twitter. Disclaimer, it is a leak, of course, that states that Studio Shaft will be adapting Fire Force Season 3, which is absolutely cool, because Fire Force is awesome. And Shaft is a great studio, and I think Fire Force fits them really well.
Yeah. I thought... I haven't seen all of Season 1 of Fire Force, but I thought David did a great job, too.
I also thought... That is my one worry, is I thought David did a really good job with it. The action stuff in there is like... Man, some of the best of the years they came out, like, for sure. Probably some of the best of the last 5 years. And so it's exciting. Shaft style, I'm a sucker for Shaft style. Bakemonogatari is one of my favorite things ever, and I love everything that Shaft has done, so.
I think they're great, too. They're like one of the big one, like the big studios that I feel like doesn't miss very often. And I only bring up David is because I think their fire animation was so fucking good.
It's,
so,
I mean,
I don't know.
Yeah, this, I believe that David Production and a lot of the people who worked originally on the first 2 seasons of Fire Force were from Shaft, or sort of Shaft adjacent. But yeah, Shaft takes something like, God, what was it? Like Nisekoi, right? Like Nisekoi is your, like the most
Generic
middle of the road, generic harem anime. You could guess the ending, you know exactly how stuff's going to play out. Now it's like the characters were good, the girls were good, or whatever, and like the anime version of that Shaft did, like elevated that a lot, and I think made Nisekoi way more popular than it would have been with a lower tier studio. So
I feel that way about so many things.
Yeah,
Demon
they also
Slayer
did
being one of them as well.
What being one of them?
Demon Slayer, like with
Right. With
Ufotable.
Yeah. I really liked Shaft's March Comes in Like a Lion. That's another series that I think the anime sort of rose to the occasion of what's a really, really good manga, really well respected, and like, yeah, it's very hard to take something that well regarded in a manga. It's kind of a slow interpersonal type thing and make the anime just as good. And March Comes in Like a Lion is really, really good. So
yeah, I hear. I definitely have to watch that at some point.
Yeah, is pretty much the only thing that had me interested in the Ruby anime that came out. Was that last year?
Oh yeah, Land of the Lustrous. Yeah,
Shaft did that. No. Like RWBY, the 3D animated Rooster Teeth thing. There's an anime miniseries. I don't know if it tells a story that was seen in the Western version or not. It's called like Ruby Ice Queendom. Is a spin-off of Ruby. But I'm interested in that because Shaft is like really good. So
I guess I'm not, because I don't think Ruby has ever caught me. You know, like even the seasons that are supposedly good never sparked my interest. So I don't know.
Ruby to me has the same issues as My Hero Academia does, where it's like the character design and the sort of styling and the action stuff in Ruby is all like really pretty, especially the character design, I will say, in Ruby is like really, really exceptionally good. And then the writing behind it just is
it's like
off,
I don't know.
Like anywhere between unreadable to not very good. Like it's just yeah. I watched I think 2 or 3 seasons of it. You know, it was just a time where I had that kind of time, and yeah, it did not stick with me very much. A little bit of sales stuff, because we have hit we've hit sort of the 6-month mark, even though we're at the end of May. Technically, the sales. How am I going to say this? The manga industry tracks sales starting at the end of November. So they're kind of like a month ahead of the new year. So from November 21st to May 21st, we have some rankings of the top volume sales of the year. Pretty predictable list, I would say. One Piece Volume 105 is the best-selling volume for the last 6 months. The 1.7 million copies. Jujutsu Kaisen Volume 21 and 22 are both 2 and 3, both at about 1.5 million. Below that, Spy Family Volume 11. These are all the most recent volumes, I believe. At about 1.2 million. Tokyo Revengers 31, that's the last volume of Tokyo Revengers, I believe, coming in at 850K. My Hero, Volume 37, at 750, and then Chainsaw Man 13, again, most recent of those two volumes, at about 700K. So,
well, cool. I feel like very, very expected, right?
Yeah, nothing super surprising here at all. It's the most recent volumes of all the most popular Jump properties. So
yeah, exactly.
What more did you ask for?
I guess, usually I root for the underdog. And, I feel very eat the rich about most huge companies making more money. Mm-hmm. But watching One Piece dominate the market is just great for me. I feel good about that one. Yeah.
That is, it's the... Yeah, there's kind of like two levels. There's stuff that is really popular, and then it's like, and the cream of that really popular stuff will rise sort of another level above.
Yeah.
The examples I give of this are like The Dark Knight. Like, that is a superhero movie kind of right before, during the sort of rise of superhero movies. And it's widely regarded as one of the best ones, if not the best one. And it really is one of, if not the best, like, movie with a superhero in it. So, that One Piece... You saying you don't agree?
No, I completely agree.
Oh, okay. Yeah. And then the other one is like Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood, essentially, is like... I think that really is a step above a lot of other anime and manga. So it's like, does it deserve to be there kind of in that number one spot? Yes.
Yeah.
So, cool. One more little sales thing, because this is interesting. That was the volume top sales. So here are actually the series top sales in the past 6 months, which shows a little bit of a different picture. Blue Lock is at number one place here, which, again, is because anime comes out, all of the historical manga volumes sell, and it's been selling. Blue Lock's been top 10 almost every week we've started the podcast, which has been, we started the podcast, I don't know, 3 weeks or so before end of November. So Blue Lock at number one.
IRL surge for it too, right? Like with the what is it?
With the World Cup, yes.
World Cup.
Yeah, World Cup anime. Yeah, perfect storm for Blue Lock. Blue Lock selling a grand total of 8 million volume copies sold. Chainsaw Man actually number 2. Again, Chainsaw Man had a anime kind of end during this time, or airing during this time. Pretty understood there. Slam Dunk actually at number 3. We talked about that, a couple months ago. Slam Dunk had the new movie. A bunch of other stuff. Jujutsu Kaisen, and then it's Jujutsu Kaisen, One Piece, Spy Family, Tokyo Revengers, which ended, My Hero, which is always popular, Oshinoko at 9, would probably be ranked even a little bit higher if we extended maybe another month, and then Kingdom at number 10. So
Kingdom, which will have my infinite curiosity, because I probably still won't read it by next time we talk.
Yeah, someday. I don't know. It's hard enough to get people to start One Piece. It is exceptionally hard to already read One Piece and then say, hey, read another 700 chapter thing. Also, with how difficult it is trying to go through something like, well, not difficult. Like I'm reading Monster right now, and that's 160 chapters or so, and it's like, man, if I do 10 chapters a day, like that's pretty good, and that's usually not getting that much. But so yeah, reading 700, it's a lot.
It's a hard pitch. I get it.
Yeah. Let's see. Zoom out. Shueisha is going to launch a vertical scrolling manga service called Jump Toon next year. I'm assuming this is Japanese only. This is essentially Shueisha, I don't know if they are going. I mean, I have a lot of questions about this, I guess, is what I'll start with. This could be Manga and Shueisha sort of expanding into the manhwa format, right? The sort of single long scrolling image comic format. This could also be Shueisha looking to buy Korean rights to manhwa and bring those over and publish them on their app. And it's kind of in the same way that they sell their rights to Viz and people in the West to publish. I don't know what angle they're choosing here. They could have original. My guess is this is either they see that a lot of the online comic publications are going in this way, are going to the sort of single line manhwa style, and they want to snatch some of those up and own the market as early as possible in Japan and elsewhere, or they want to do it to partner with Korean publishers and get the popular Korean manhwa over and push them to Japan that way. So I don't think this will affect us over here in America too much.
We've already seen kind of collaboration with like Tower of God and all that stuff. Korean manhwa getting animated by Japanese studios.
Right.
So yep. I can see some strong collaboration there. Because honestly, if you think about it, even in the West, it's money on the table. Because our only kind of... Well, one of our few official Korean apps that is mainstream is Webtoon.
Webtoon.
And I think it is I think Webtoon is just okay. So I feel like someone like Jump, who has the best translators, the best editors, the best typesetters, all that stuff.
The most money in general.
Yeah, exactly. The most capital to kind of leverage talent. I feel like they could capitalize on just a system to bring K-manga everywhere.
Yeah. I'll be really interested to see what angle this is coming from, just because, again, this is the biggest manga publisher branching out into a new angle. I mean, this is similar if Marvel or DC said, we're going to open a branch that does manga style comics, or we're going to open a branch that does manga, and not giving much more details of, okay, is that you're buying manga from Japan? Is that you're publishing your own manga? Is it you're buying already published manga and doing it? So curious to see where this goes.
I think they're already dipping their toes with what you're going to bring up next, and also Deadpool Samurai. It's bizarre that I've read Deadpool Samurai and Spider-Man Red over an official volume of Deadpool or Spider-Man. So I think there's like promise there. There's a market not only in Japan but outside of Japan for people who like manga.
Yeah, I mean, for sure, and you're right, the last news thing we're going to talk about very much goes into this, but I think more and more, I think Shueisha is smart enough in this regard to know that comic readers have way more overlap than... I'm trying to, it's hard to even compare it to something else, right? I mean, I grew up on Western comics, and it's one of the reasons I feel like I slid so easily into manga, right? Is that I grew up reading Batman and Detective Comics and the Archie Sonic comics, which were really good.
That's what I was going to say, too. I grew up reading all of the Archie comics.
Yeah, I mean, and I would bet that, especially people kind of in our age range, late millennials, mid-millennials,
I have no idea.
People who had Western comics popularized and I was born a year after Batman 1989 came out. Batman was huge. Batman animated series was published. Spider-Man animated series was there. Justice League, comic book heroes in comics were a big part of me growing up, and not that they necessarily fell from grace, but something about the manga. I mean, we've talked a little bit in the past episodes and in some of our specials about why we think manga has sort of quote unquote overtaken Western comics as true, depending on which metric you use there. But yeah, I think you're right.
A metric. I think in today's age, manga is more popular with younger people.
That is true. Yes.
And I'll end the tangent here, but I think the whole reason behind that is just accessibility. But and kind of how the story, there's no resets in manga. It's just a linear story.
Well, and that's my biggest thing. I mean, just personally for me, I like reading a contained story with an ending, or at least a promise of an ending. And reading serialized, Batman, whatever, you don't really get an ending. You get kind of a bunch of story arcs, and then they will reset it, or they'll do something else, and there's the crossover stuff is difficult to keep track of and all that jazz. But anyways, all of that to say, I think Shueisha sees the appeal of Korean manga format, the manhwa format, the sort of single vertical scrolling manga, and says, hey, if we can get, 60% of our, black and white single page, 2-page manga, flip page, whatever you want to call it, right? Standard manga style publications, we get them reading vertical. They'll read both, right? This is not a thing where people are only going to consume one or the other. I know for instance, I have Webtoon downloaded on my phone, and I don't read a whole lot of them. That's more because I have not found any that are to the quality level that I think I would appreciate. I've only read a couple of manhwa.
But speaking of Western comics and kind of the Marvel pushing into manga, tell us about the next topic, because I think
this is what we were referencing
bizarre.
Earlier. So the pair who brought us My Hero Academia Vigilantes, which you and I are both huge fans of, Betancourt, the artist, and Hideyuki Furuhashi, the writer, they are coming back together with a spin-off manga for Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, and it's called Spider-Man Dr. Octopus Girl. And it starts on June 20th. This is the story about Doc Ock. Manga have almost never had good titles. But this is a story about Doc Ock getting trapped in the body of a high school girl. It shouldn't work, but these two are a really good pair. Betancourt, I love their art, and Furuhashi's a good writer. Vigilantes was great. Vigilantes is miles better than the base My Hero Academia, so yeah.
I can't wait to see Doc Ock just be a weird nerd in high school, like one of these people who just don't get humor or relationships. He's just like, science. But in a high school girl's body.
I'm very curious to see what this is like. We'll find out, I guess, in 3 weeks or so here. I hope we get this simulpub from chapter 1. I kind of feel like we will. If they're smart, they will.
Related, by the way, do you remember when Obama switched bodies with a high school girl in Air Gear?
What? No.
You have to pull that up real quick, because it is very funny.
I see a version of Barack Obama appeared in Air Gear. John Omaha, president.
John Omaha, yeah.
Is this what you're talking about?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Well, he switches body with a high school girl, and and the high school girl is in Obama's body. Yeah, it's wonderful.
Sounds.
And Obama's very jazzed about it. It's hilarious.
Oh God, what is Air Gear? It's Oh Great. Yeah. Okay, yeah. The Oh Great artist. Yeah, who did Bakemonogatari? Okay.
Oh, is it the same artist?
Yes. Oh, written by him too. Also, so I guess
Air Gear is great.
I really like Oh Great. He's fun on Twitter, and his Bakemonogatari art is absolutely amazing. So.
Cool. It's a good series. Check it out.
Yeah. All right, that's it for the news. Let's get on with our discussions. I'll lead off.
Honestly, we have a lot to talk about. Yeah.
Yeah, so we... just let's talk about just in One Piece. We have promised, just as a rule, to not talk about One Piece more than once a quarter. This will be our second quarter discussion of One Piece. The last one was back in, February maybe? So about 3 months out. Because we could spend probably the whole chapter there. But let's start with Sakamoto Days, which is we had I think this was labeled as the last flashback chapter. I think it was called a final. Let's just talk about the flashback sort of arc in general, because it was maybe 7 or 8 total chapters. What a good flashback.
It was great.
Two really good flashbacks happening at the same time, Dan to Dan and Sakamoto Days. There's a lot of bad flashbacking in anime and manga, and these two are some of the best I have seen.
I can think of like 3 series where flashbacks always hit, and I can throw Sakamoto Days in one of them now. I think One Piece and Dandadan have that art mastered.
Yeah, One Piece is very good. The flashbacks to the Ishvalan War in Full Metal Alchemist are also some of the others that I think are really, really good. But yeah, this is so. Another thing that I love here, just on this page in general, is the artistic audacity to just say, "Oh yeah, I've got a limit of probably 24 or 23 pages." The first page is just a blank white page with the title. That's like, I love that so much. Part of my simplistic style, kind of basic, no frills type stuff. That's kind of, I'm very much that style of person. And just giving you a white page with the title on it, leading into like a very dramatic engagement afterwards. I love this. It's so weird to be talking about how much I literally love the choice of the artist to not draw anything on a blank page except for the title, but like this hits so hard for me to just be like blank page. The next page is literally I killed Rihanna Cow. It's like that is so impactful.
And that is the majority, like that. This is like one of the few lines in the chapter. There's like a few more, but it is all action.
Yeah, I bet there's like maybe 100 words total in this chapter. Like probably not even. But yeah, I mean, this is maybe not one of the greatest fights, but because the flashback did such a good job at developing the characters, and we have heard talk about Rion from her, is it niece, right?
Niece, yeah.
Yeah, because it's her aunt, yeah. So that, and then as we'll see in these upcoming pages, the sort of style, the sort of dramatic, like, this is an action panel that is clearly about the two characters fighting. And that's like, okay, of course it is, Bruce. That all action things are about two people fighting, but like there's a lot, and we can't see every page of it obviously, but there's a lot of close-ups of faces while this is happening, and Sakamoto, who's generally like pretty kind of emotionless character. That's kind of who his character is. You can see in the bottom panel here, like he seems much more kind of visibly like angry and perturbed, showing more emotion than average in this fight, and that's like,
I know exactly what you're saying. This is the most personal fight in the series. The rest of
probably
it is probably impersonal, right? But this one's, I see what you mean.
Very much, this is an assassin who, does not care to explain, and is kind of knows that he sealed himself in a fight he can't win, and a guy who's like, okay, let's fight. I'm here for revenge. Yeah, it's amazing. There's also this. This is one of man. When we talk about Sakamoto Days, we talk about how good the fight choreography is, and this fight again does not let down. You're always going to get at least one or two cool things. I mean, first of all, the bad guy. He's not called Slur yet. What is his name now?
I forgot. I don't remember.
I don't know. We'll call him Slur. The bad guy.
Slur.
He's got this cool whip sword. He's essentially got. Did you ever play Soul Calibur?
Yeah.
He's got Ivy's weapon, which is like a sword that becomes this like whip chain sword, which again is just like, when's the last time you saw a whip sword in an action manga? Like, I think it probably appeared in Sakamoto Days like a year ago. That's probably the last time anyone has seen one.
Yeah, I can really only think of Bloodborne and Castlevania.
Yeah,
like
Bloodborne, Castlevania, Soul Calibur. But I love this so much I had to put it in here, but the whip sword gets wrapped around Sakamoto, and then he slips out of his jacket. This is the stuff that I read Sakamoto Days for. It's like, what wild and crazy thing are they going to do? And again, like, you'll notice here, like 2 pages later, again, we get close-up shot of the face on both of the characters. Like, this is, you put it with the correct words, this is a very personal fight. This is a very climactic fight. This is what I have preached in the past about lining up your climactic battle with your climactic character moment. When both of those hit at the same time, they are both elevated. And Sakamoto Days did that excellently. This is clearly the end of the arc. This is the climax fight. And it's also the climax of these two characters coming to a head. So, I mean, it's just it's just perfect. It's just great. This is just excellent writing and choreography and everything.
And here's one thing I love. Scroll back one. So, audio listeners, in this one, Sakamoto gets wrapped around with the whip. And in one panel, he moves his right arm, just like there's motion lines on it, and which foreshadows in the very next panel his over-the-top move that he does, where he wraps the chain around his arm and his jacket, which is really not necessary for the action to be as good as it is, but it just adds, I don't know, this is why this guy's such a great action choreographer.
I mean, like, legitimately,
small things adding up.
Yeah, legitimately, Sakamoto Days, I think, is like uncontested the best action choreography I have ever seen in any comic. Like, like unquestionably cool. It's maybe not necessarily the best action paneling. Like, I would still probably give that to Murata just for like clarity of what you're conditioning. But you're absolutely right. I didn't even notice that. Right? I didn't even notice the he's moving his arm, and then when he slides out of the jacket, it's still around his arm. Because then, the next thing he does, is he fucking yeets him. Yeah. Like, if he yeets him through the ceiling, which again is this awesome thing. But man, I'm still focused on, like, look at Sakamoto's face in this top right panel. Like, that feels like a different face than we usually see Sakamoto make. That feels more angry and resolute than standard. I think, like, Sakamoto showing those more emotions is so impactful because he's usually such a stone-faced, kind of unemotional type character.
Yeah.
So.
Speaking of this arc in general, I feel like it's developed Sakamoto so much without him saying barely anything this whole arc. He's just this, like, kind of a dumbass who has monstrous strength, and he's not really technically proficient in anything but improvisation, you know? And he's a master at that.
Yeah, so, I mean, I think literally one of the... Was it Rion maybe who mentioned? It was like, oh, I think I could beat this person to fight, but, like, could you beat Sakamoto to fight? It's like, well, if we were both completely naked, yes. If he had anything he could do improvisational fighting with, I lose. That's like... Yeah. And that's so cool that it's like... That's so organically developed throughout the series that, like, you wouldn't really think of it as, like, his specialty superpower, really, like, until this arc. And it's weird because throughout the series, they fight all these people with, like, oh, this guy's specialty is he's got, he's a poisoner, he's got poison things. This guy's a movie maker, and he fights with, like, a sharpened, clacker, or everyone all has these all weird niche, like, specialty ways of fighting. Oh, this guy's a disguise specialist. This girl fights with the like hand saw, and Sakamoto very much just feels like, oh, he's just like a normal fighter, but he's really strong and really good. And then you realize, like, no. He's not a normal fighter. His thing is that his weapon is whatever his surroundings are. Or if you're using a weapon on him, he will repurpose it for his... Like, he actually does have a cool superpower, kind of, in this series, but it's like... I didn't fully grasp it until that chapter in the flashback a couple of weeks ago where they're like, oh yeah, if I fought him, with no tools, I could win, but if he had anything he could do improvisational fighting with, I absolutely lose. So
he is very much that guy from Fate Zero, the Black Knight guy, where everything he picks up is his weapon. That's his noble phantasm. That's Sakamoto's power. Just anything he touches is a weapon.
Becomes his noble phantasm. Yep. Yeah. I absolutely now need this crossover of Fate and Sakamoto Days. Sakamoto gets to be, I don't know, Lancer maybe.
I feel like he's too lucky for that.
But yeah, and then it ends, of course, with what we assumed, what we had been told in the past has happened, right? Which Sakamoto kills the bad guy. I don't think I included the very last page. No, I didn't include the very last page. The very last page is really interesting because it flashes forward and shows the bad guy, and he says something along the lines of, I was just thinking about how you should always know what your last words are going to be because you never know when you're going to die. Because he's, like, embarrassed about what he said in the past here.
Right. That's really good.
Yeah. Also, yeah, I mean, again, I'm just, like... I cannot stress enough how good artistic choices are made in this chapter of close-up of Sakamoto's face, close-up of the bad guy's face, close-up of Sakamoto's eyes... And then the sort of zoom out when he does the execute. And again, this top left panel, if you're watching the video, hopefully, Sakamoto looks like really pained. Like this is, again, there's like Sakamoto I think shows more emotion in this one chapter than maybe like the rest of the series combined. Other than the couple times his family is threatened, he gets pretty angry. But other than that, yeah, I mean,
it looks like the final panel being pity is like perfect, and I think that's why Slur here is ashamed as well. On top of that, I don't know. I a lot of good visual storytelling just all around.
Yeah,
great
for
chapter.
sure. This is, I mean, it has already solidified itself as Sakamoto Days is awesome. This is like top 3 in Jump for me, like almost every week now, I would say.
I'd agree. I think yeah, pretty easily top 3. I'd agree.
Yeah, and if it's not in the top 3, it's like it's 4th always or something. So yeah, I mean it does have a lot of competition, but yeah, I mean anything else on Sakamoto Days, we of course have a lot to get to, but
no, I just simple chapter, great chapter.
Yeah, the amazing climax, emotional, soup. Here's the thing about a good flashback, and we talked about this, I think, with Dan to Dan. We did that last week or 2 weeks ago? Last week. With Dan to Dan and with Sakamoto Days is when the flashback is over, it now makes the current time you're in, like, even better. That is what a good flashback should do, right? Is you should flashback, tell a small-scale story, provide context to the current time, and if you do that, it elevates the whole story, which is what I think both Dan to Dan and Sakamoto Days did these past couple of weeks.
You know, after the next heavy arc is completed and they find Akira and whatnot, I want to see a flashback with Sakamoto and his wife meeting. I want to see how that happened.
Yeah, that would be an interesting one. I bet that it's less dramatic than this, but...
Oh, I expect it to be just goofy or cute or something.
Well, I also wonder... Because hasn't she shown that she's like also really strong or something? I'm trying to remember.
I think mentally,
or was that
like
that was Nagumo disguised as her? Maybe I'm thinking of.
Yeah, that was Nagumo disguised as her, and then Sakamoto disguised as her. But she's very weird because she's very accepting of assassin stuff.
Yeah. I mean, she basically just said, "Don't kill."
Yeah, no killing.
All right, talk to me about one of your other favorite actions from Jump. Talk to me about Mashle, Magic, and Muscles. This is chapter 157.
157. Yeah, I bring Mashle in every now and again. It's not always the best thing in the universe, but it's usually a fun shitpost. I thought this chapter especially, was pretty outstanding. So, to give context to any audio or visual people watching this, basically they are fighting the final boss, who is Mashle's dad, Mash's dad, and his power is, he has, like, Darkness Blast, basic Kamehamehas for the bad guy, but ultimately his power is he can just stop time or manipulate time freely.
This is literally the Dio fight at the end of Stardust Crusaders.
I haven't seen it, but I agree, there's no road roller.
Very minor spoilers for a series which literally came out 30 years ago, but the world, right, Dio stands Zawarudo. Its power is he can stop time for like 6 seconds, I think, at a time, 5 seconds. So
yeah, so this guy is basically Dio, but he can just stop time indefinitely. Yeah. He has space-time control powers. And earlier, a few chapters back, Mash said, I can definitely beat him, not even a question, as long as I can get close to him. So they have like the old villains become friends generic plot line where everyone gets Mash, I keep calling him Mashle, Mash to the villain. And he uses his finger extensor magic, which is just a flick.
He just flicks, yep.
On the final boss, and go to the next one, and he time stops it because time stops are just broken.
Yeah.
And then he gives his whole villain spiel where he's like, "Yeah, I can just stop time, bro. You had no chance. Good try though." And it turns out like the flick worked, and the dude is bleeding out of his mouth and eyes. He makes himself like a bigger mouth hole to spit out some blood. I love that. And the fingers lodged right in his heart. Yeah. And then
essentially it's like from what I garnered from reading the pictures you sent for me to add to the deck here, was it Mash essentially like flicked, he had 0.1 seconds, which is what he said he needed to like beat a time stop guy or whatever. And he like, during that time he uses his finger extensor magic. He just flicked his finger, and that meant that when the guy time stopped and rushed up to him, he was kind of planned ahead, I guess, and got him. So
Exactly. So like the onus of how it works, how you beat someone who can literally
like the
manipulate
Bill
and
Nye
stop time,
breakdown.
is that in order for him to decide to stop time, the best human reaction speed to make a decision is 0.1 seconds. And in that 0.1 seconds where he decides to stop time, Mash sends a flick into his chest faster than a human can react. And that's how he beats the person who can literally manipulate time, is just through human reaction speed.
Yeah.
And I think that is just very hype, very fun, and is the perfect way for someone with muscle powers to beat someone with unstoppable magic, is just by reacting faster than anyone is capable of reacting to.
Yeah, and that's kind of the Mash special, right? Is that
Yeah.
he's very Saitama One Punch Man, where it's like, how strong is he? Exactly the strongest, fastest. If muscles make things move faster, he's fast enough. If they make him jump high enough, he jumps higher. That's exactly the kind of thing Mashle is. So
It is literally like a speed blitz, where this is how peak human can fight like a god, is speed blitz them, because they still have human reaction times. I love that. Either way, that was the end of that chapter. I thought it was a very cool way to fight kind of like an unstoppable being like this, because it did not feel like an ass pull, and it fit with the theme of how Mash's powers work perfectly. So just really fun chapter overall.
is Mash winding down? Do you think the series is actually about to end?
Yeah, 100%.
And you think it's going to end it? You don't think there's going to be a second arc or another?
No, I don't think so. I 100% do not think Mash is going to have more after this.
Interesting.
Because
I wonder...
they wrapped up every storyline. This is the last one.
Okay, yeah. I also wonder because MASH got an anime last season, or maybe winter, and we did not see a huge boost in manga sales, at least from what I've been tracking, right? I don't think MASH entered into the top 10 while its manga was being published. So that, yeah, I mean, on one hand, it sounds like the author is able to end this on his own terms. I don't think he's getting canned necessarily, but on the other hand, I do wonder, Jump has historically, if you get an anime and it doesn't boost sales enough, they will also cancel you for that. So
I think this was naturally leading to an ending either way.
I think that's very good. I also think that most manga series should just be about this length, right? Like most manga I think should be somewhere between like 2 years to 4 years long, right? Somewhere between 2 years of publication is usually about 90 chapters. And then 4 years would be, slightly less than 200. I would say somewhere between like 85 and 200 chapters is kind of the perfect length for a manga.
I agree. Unless you're going for like a Kingdom or a One Piece, then
exactly.
That's an anomaly.
Those are the rare ones, though. Things that are good past those times are generally not good. I mean, for instance, like Fullmetal Alchemist is, I think, like 120 chapters. Monster, which is amazing, is like 160. Like these are the good amounts where it's long. You give people time to get into it and invested and continue with it. You get maybe one season of anime published while it's coming out, and then it's over. I mean, even Demon Slayer, right? Demon Slayer was what, maybe 250 chapters, something like that.
Yeah, it's like hundreds or 200.
180, 190, something like that. I mean, Jujutsu Kaisen is kind of like right over that. I think Jujutsu Kaisen's on like 220, 225, something like that. So lots of things in this area. I also think that just a lot of things, once they are sort of an unplanned free fall of, well, I'm just going to publish this forever, just start losing quality.
Are we talking about Hero Academia? Are we naming and shaming here?
I mean, yeah, because we shame it often, almost every week. Because, I mean, I would say My Hero Academia was good to decent for like maybe about 150 chapters, right? Like,
yeah.
All of the first arc, all the forest training stuff. Because I think about 150 chapters is right about when you get the big All Might versus All for One.
Yeah, it stopped being good after that, I'd say. Probably around. It had moments, though. But I think the symptom here, right, that we're talking about is that stuff like One Piece builds its world and builds plot lines while it is telling other stories. So
Exactly.
they have a lot to do and a lot set up afterwards. While Hero Academia still has these like same plot lines and stories built up, but it doesn't build the structure to get there. So it feels all thrown together at the same time.
Yeah. So the arc that I mentioned in My Hero, the All for One versus One for All thing, that ends at chapter 94. And I would say the next arc after that is still okay in My Hero, which, is 20 or 30 chapters. Again, we're at about 120, 130 chapters. And then it kind of drastically falls off in quality. So, yeah, there's just something about, I think it's, I don't know if it's human nature or if it's just how we've developed reading books and TV series and whatever, but there is sort of a consumption size of a story that is good for most people and that is good for a storyteller and that is consumable and able to be executed on. For instance, people don't really make, people don't plan to make miniseries that are 30 hours long, right? They make 4 or 8 hour miniseries. They make 2 to 3 hour movies. The size of a story is important. And in manga, where you don't really know what the size of your story is, I think there is a goal, a sort of sweet spot where you can introduce something at the start or near the start and go through it and then resolve it by the end. I will put forward Chainsaw Man Part 1 as sort of like a perfect, I think Chainsaw Man Part 1 is like 97 chapters or 94 chapters or something. That is like the perfect encapsulation of the things introduced in the first 2 or 3 chapters are all sort of worked through with other arcs and they're all resolved by the end. Chainsaw Man could have just ended after the first arc and it still would have been excellent. Part 2 I am also still loving. Part 2 seems to have the same trajectory and I would guess that it's going to be about the same length. So
I think things can be variable length as long as you're not doing. It's not, in Tom and Jerry where they're on a train and Tom is like putting the tracks in front of him as the train is
I know
going.
exactly what you're talking about.
As long as you're not doing that, I feel like you could maybe extend it a bit longer in a natural way. But if you are doing that, which a lot of people do.
I was about to say, and I think that is the big problem with manga is that a lot of authors, after, you'll think about something, you'll have a year or two of good planned, writing arcs to go through, and then after that, you're like, well, I didn't plan anything past this, and you're, putting that track in front of your train as you move. Fuck all the other manga. One Piece was crazy good this week.
It was.
This is One Piece 1085. This is major spoilers. So if you are not caught up on One Piece and you mind pretty deep One Piece spoilers, this is not for you. If you are reading One Piece or you don't mind spoilers, this is going to be a fun conversation. The title of this chapter is The Death of Nefertari de Cobra. Yeah. So, I was going to put the title in like the intro thing and I was like, no, I can't do that. The title's a spoiler. So, let's...
I actually didn't even notice this chapter title. Mm-hmm. I very much remember, before we get into the chapter, I very much remember telling you when you were reading One Piece to not read the chapter titles because in the list is one of them is called The Death of Portgas the Ace.
I think I remember, yeah.
Yeah. It's just such a huge spoiler.
Which I was actually lucky enough that that was not spoiled for me when I got there.
Good. I was hoping it wouldn't be.
Yeah, there's not a whole lot like that, but...
yeah.
Boy, what... So much happened in the chapter. I think...
Let me try to give it really abridged version.
Sure. Give us a
and just know that this is going to be missing details. Effectively, we are ending Reverie, and Cobra is the leader of Alabasta, is in front of the 5 elders, the Gorosei, who lead the world. And it is revealed last chapter that this mysterious shadowy figure named Imu, however you say it, is the true leader of the world, sitting on a throne, which, when the world government was originally created, everyone agreed no one should sit on it for equality reasons. But she has been sitting on it this whole time, leading the world from the shadows. And Cobra is just finding out that this is the case, as she kind of showed herself, and that's where we are right now.
Yeah.
And now we can talk.
Well, let's start. I mean, I wrote down a bunch of just like question stuff, but let's start with one that, because you referenced as a she. Is that confirmed? Do we know that do we know the sex gender of this character? I feel like we don't. I also do think that it generally looks kind of female. I also think that would be more interesting, but who knows?
I just made that assumption, so I'm not sure.
Yeah, I think a lot of people do. I think a lot of theorists and guessers, me included, I think this is a female character, but honestly, no idea. Yeah. This is. What's the first? I'm trying to think. We'll just go in order. What's the first big reveal here? We reveal that I guess, knows about the Nefertari, the past ancestor of Vivi and Cobra. I can't remember what his first name was. I guess Nefertari is his last name, right? Yeah. So.
Yeah. I think to answer that question, I think the first big reveal is that in the past, the moniker D is, as says, is the ancient enemy that they fought against and somewhat erased. She mentions, or I'll say they mention that it was their ancient enemy, and the current remnants of whatever D is.
Right, current people with the middle name, quote unquote, D, the will of D.
Have no idea what the true meaning of D is, and they're more of like an echo of what they used to be. Yes.
So that leads us to the question, and I posted to you this because I read the little spoiler blurb for it. That's what got me thinking about it. My theory, and this is, everyone's got a wild theory about One Piece. My theory is the will of D is the will of, I'm trying to think of how to say it. Dragon? I'm just going to say D stands for dragon. That's the start of it. Because the celestial dragons are sort of the ruling 1% class of One Piece. I think the celestial dragons stole that name from original actual dragon people, given dragon name people. I don't know exactly how this all fits together. That's the way that a theory works, but
I can see that.
I think the idea that the celestial dragons deserve to rule, and the will of D being sort of the will of the original dragons, and because again, we don't really know what happened during the Void Century, right? That's one of the big mysteries of One Piece. My guess is that because, and Oda, I think, ties all these things together, and I think he chooses very simple. There isn't a whole lot of complex things when we get flashbacks like this, right? It's usually a pretty simplistic way to tie things together. And I think one of the easiest and most simplistic ways to tie together the Void Century and the Will of D is that essentially the Celestial Dragons rose after the Void Century is over. Celestial Dragons are in power. So my guess is before the Void Century stuff, there's obviously a struggle. I think that's been mentioned a lot, that there's, they obviously fought about something. The fighting was essentially the Celestial Dragons taking the quote-unquote will of D, the will of the dragons, and saying, this is ours now, or maybe one of the dragons rebelled or something, and they say, we're the Celestial Dragons, and you are just the other dragons, the other dragon, will of D, whatever. So the erasure thing is basically going to be those who have the moniker D are the true rulers of the world. And I think what we learn in this chapter about the Nefertari family lines up with that, which is why I think this is a good theory. Because one of the next reveals we get, Im asks about, do we have it in there? I don't think we have this page in here, but Im asks, Cobra is talking about, who is his ancient ancestor who left him a letter or something, right? And says, that wasn't her full name. What was her full name? And he goes, she had the initial D. I also have the initial D. Yeah, it all just ties together of, okay, so the past, the past ruler who didn't go along with the Celestial Dragons had the will of D. Maybe that's related to it. now the Nefertaris still have the Will of D. Luffy's got it. All these important people who, and I think part of the theory that I sent to you that I also think reinforces this is that literally I think every single person we know in current timeline One Piece with the moniker D has been anti-World of Government and anti-Celestial Dragons. So
yes,
go off.
But I also think it's because the Celestial Dragons or the World Government just tries to fucking murk them. Real quick, right before that, basically, Im said that Queen Lily, who was brought up a second ago, fucked up, made a big blunder, and threw the poneglyphs, their biggest mistake, their biggest failing, all over the world for people to find, and started off the whole onus of the story in the first place. And she is asking Cobra, was it a mistake or was this intentional? Mm-hmm. And Cobra, in the next chapter or next page, reveals that her name was a Queen Nefertari D. Lily.
Yep.
Which indicates, yes, it was a master plan. It wasn't a fuck up. It wasn't a blunder. And Im gets really pissed off.
Yeah. Also, can we talk about real quick? I love the very bottom section of this page
with the clocks.
Where the Gorosei are all like pulling out their weapons at the same time. Like that's cool. That's very like End of Godfather Part 2. Like, it's just a very cool panel from Oda right here.
I love that. And then impales Cobra's leg with an arrow.
With an
like
arrow?
A shadow
so,
arrow.
And here's the next question. Im has a devil fruit. I'm going to make that assumption. I'm going to state that as fact, although we do not know. This does not have the traditional sort of crackling electricity that the other power, which I'm forgetting because there's so much stuff in One Piece that I can't keep it all straight. What's the black electric crackling reinforcement?
Haki.
Haki, yeah. This does not look like a Haki ability. This looks like a devil fruit or something. Do you have any guesses or predictions of what devil fruit Im might have?
I don't think it's a devil fruit. I think with this, it seems like a devil's tail, and it's called a devil fruit for a reason. So I imagine she might be like the progenitor of these powers.
Oh yeah, you're hitting on the same theory that I read that I liked, which was maybe the reason they are called devil fruits is that one of the original or first ones that people experienced was a devil fruit, right? Was the fruit of the power of the devil. And they said, oh my gosh, that is a devil fruit. And then someone has the fire powers and they go, oh, that's also a devil fruit. It's just fire. Again, I think Oda's really good at his world building at making things very simple. Even when things kind of are mysterious and seem complicated, I think he almost always returns to simplicity to explain things. And I think it would make a lot of sense for Im, this supposedly at least 800-year-old person who has been ruling for that long, who I'm going to assume has a devil fruit, to have a, now it might be just called like, X-type devil fruit version, version devil or version Satan or something like that. It could be like that, but this to me reads like, like it's like the devil's pointed tail is the attack that she uses, or that they use. I think that's a cool theory.
Yeah,
and I'm behind it.
Yeah, I think that one might be legitimate. Either way, very cool moment here on the page. What we're seeing is Cobra reveals that her name was Nefertari D. Lily, gets stabbed, and then Sabo pops in and tries to one-shot the whole crew with his fire powers, which I love. It's just, it's... In anime, you'd see someone come in and be like, let's talk about this real quick, then fight. But Sabo just shows up and tries to assassinate the whole Gorosei in one go.
Yeah. Well, and this also, this is really cool because this connects back to, was it like maybe almost a year ago that we saw the island get nuked because the government was looking for Sabo and thought that Sabo was on that one island?
Yeah.
And I remember at the time people thinking, and even thinking like, okay, like Sabo's a revolutionary, but like they're not like nuking Dragon from orbit. Like, and Dragon's the leaders of the revolutionary. And even the idea that he killed, I mean, clearly the idea that he killed Cobra was a lie. And so, but even covering up their reason for like nuking an island with that, this to me ties together with that perfectly, right?
Why they want to kill Sabo. Yeah.
Yeah, they know, I think, that Sabo overheard the things they were talking about. And they also know, sort of, we'll see at the end of the chapter, that Cobra gives him like a message to bring to Luffy and whoever else. I guess to Luffy and Dragon, or Vivi. Yeah. Luffy and Vivi. And it's like, I understand now why they're very adamant, why they were chasing Sabo down, like why they literally nuked an island because they thought Sabo was on it. Very cool. Also, I have to point out in this top left panel here, where Sabo is using his fire thing and has this staff, very Monkey King, very Wukong-esque.
I didn't even realize what you mentioned. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, it just struck me. It struck me as very very Wukong Goku kind of style here. Hey guys, Bruce here. Just piping in real quick to let you know that Gautam lost a little bit of his audio recording. Luckily, I do have a master recording, so there shouldn't be too many interruptions. It shouldn't change too much. He might be a little bit quieter until the end of the episode, but just the last 20 or 25 minutes here might sound a little bit different in case you noticed that. Thanks a lot. Let's get back to the episode. Also, right, man, I don't know. I was just gonna say real quick, Oda can do some of the craziest things to his character designs. All we have seen of Im is a very thin black outline with a crown and then their eyes. And their eyes already to me are like iconic. Like you can, if I see those eyes on any other character, it's like, oh, that means something. It's a very cool little piece of character design to have the sort of double concentric circles in the eyes. And I love the bottom left, the like, where did this come from when they get mad and it like goes really stylized and stuff. That's very cool. Love this.
I do like that Im is very short-tempered and very egotistical, and you can parse that part already. But yeah, cool stuff. What's on the next page? Yeah, and after Sabo incinerates the Gorosei, they turn into these weird shadow amalgam creatures. I have to assume that the literal shadow government here is just creations from Im. Like, I have to imagine the Gorosei is just Im's creation.
Yeah. So that's how I read it. And then I read some of the comments, and they thought differently. So tell me how you feel about this. This is another little point that I had written down. I read this like you read this. To me, this is Im using their power to take control or power up or unlock some kind of thing in the Five Elders in the Gorosei here. Other people seem to think that this was the Gorosei awakening, maybe not awakening, the Gorosei using their own individual powers, and this is Oda just sort of covering it up or blacking it out because he doesn't want to reveal their full designs yet, which I could see that. I could see either one being true. To me, when I first read it, I very much thought this was Im's power again, but who knows?
I think it is, because the Gorosei haven't said anything since they transformed, only it feels like, at least. And to me, it feels naturally like a natural progression that Im was just puppeting this whole thing from the get-go.
Yeah, it also, I mean, the just this top panel here looks like it's like the eyes, the sort of empty big eyes in the background behind the Gorosei really seem to imply that this is like that's controlling them or influencing them somehow. I don't know. I could see it going either way. This isn't. I don't really care which way this goes. It could be either way, but it's an interesting theory to think of.
But this brings up the point: what does Shanks know? Because he had a private conversation with them at a crucial arc that has not been revealed whatsoever. Mm-hmm. So I'm curious, like, how much of this does Shanks know?
Well, and Shanks is also said to be, how did they put it? Like, he's like in good with the Celestial Dragons. He's like a pirate that they like or something like that, right?
Right.
So, yeah, it's interesting. I think is the prevailing theory there that Shanks is at least part Celestial Dragon or potentially a Celestial Dragon who is also a pirate? We've seen this happen before, right? Don Quixote was a celestial dragon who was a pirate and a warlord and all that jazz. So,
and I also, okay, not to bring up Shanks as a bad guy theory, because I don't think he's a bad guy, but he only seems to take action when people with the name D are involved. Like, he only changed the war after Ace died. He only influenced the war right after Ace died. And he only decided to go after the One Piece after Luffy defeated Kaido and Big Mom. That's when he decided to set out. So I'm wondering, there has to be something there.
Yeah,
I just don't know what it is.
I'm going down the stage that Shanks is not a bad guy, but I do think he is a celestial dragon or has celestial dragon blood, and I think that he will reveal that to Luffy at a time where Luffy says, I'm taking down the celestial dragons, and Shanks will go, well, I'm one of them, what are you going to do about that? And Luffy is going to be like, I said what I said, let's go, motherfucker.
I assume if that is how it goes, then Shanks is hoping to be beaten.
I think so. I think Shanks to me feels more like I'm going to play the role of the sort of last blocker to the One Piece, because that's a role that the dragons and Im and the ruling class all think I should be playing. They think that I'm on their side, or they think that I'm not a threat to them. And if I sort of present myself as a blocker and then Luffy beats me, oh well, and he's more kind of happy with it, but he can't. I think the pressure twist interesting thing here is probably that Shanks doesn't feel like he can directly go against the Celestial Dragons, even though he doesn't agree, even though he is much more on Luffy's side of thinking of freedom, and they're clearly the bad guys. I think Shanks knows all of that, but I think he cannot. Something is keeping him from just saying, I'm a pirate, I'll fight against you also, blah, blah, blah. And I don't know what that is. Maybe it's because, his parents are actually good people, even though they're celestial dragons. There's got to be some celestial dragons that are good. I think that we'll meet before the end of the series. My guess is that it's Shanks's family.
Shanks has a quote for that. Like, he said to Whitebeard, he's like, what happened to your arm? He's like, I bet it on the next generation. And if he is the strongest pirate in the world and can just go grab the One Piece, why would he say he bet it on the next generation? Like, he couldn't do it.
A good point. Yeah.
There is something there. You're right.
There is something there. Who knows what it is? My guess is Shanks is connected to this. I'm going to guess celestial dragons very directly. I'm going to say probably bloodline related.
I think you're right. I think you're right on that. But we will see, and if we're right, then let's brag about it.
Yeah. So okay, next interesting reveal. The message that Cobra gives to Sabo to deliver to Vivi and Luffy is, the poneglyphs must be protected. Fly the flag that heralds the world's eventual dawn. Nefertari D. Lili. What does this mean?
Fly that fucking shitty straw hat flag that Luffy drew a while ago. I think it'll be that flag. It's the straw hat flag. It's iconic, right?
I give that over under. That's 85%. I think it's the straw hat flag. I do think the wording here is very explicit. I think the dawn, and the dawn being related to Luffy's dragon flute, the sun god, romance dawn. There's the sun. I mean, there is. There were a lot of theories before the reveal of Gear 5 of why what's the name of the sun god? I'm forgetting now.
Sun god Nika.
Nika, yeah. There's a lot of sun god Nika theories and stuff about one sort of connected to all of this imagery and about romance dawn, about dawning, new dawn, and here it comes up again, right? The sun rising, the sun god rising is the dawn. And it all connects together, and Luffy is literally the sun god, right? So
effectively, and the world is kind of run by shadows, so it just makes sense. But that stuff is pretty cut and dry. I feel
it's cut and dry, but it's very satisfying that 1,085 chapters in, after countless theories, Oda can still drop something. I mean, the cool thing is that the flag that heralds I mean, if you would just say, oh, fly the flag that heralds the world's change, it's like, okay, yeah, we know what that means. That's cool. But like using the word dawn here, it like invokes all of that other stuff. Like to me, like using the word dawn, it ties it more directly to Luffy than any other word. Maybe like rising sun, or like you could have literally said fly the flag that heralds Nico the sun god's return. Maybe that's more direct, but like dawn is second most direct.
So. No, this is perfect. You're right. It's very satisfying. And there's like the sun pirates who freed slaves, like
there's tons of it in here.
It all leads to it. Yeah.
There's more we're leaving out. I will reread One Piece maybe someday, and I'm looking forward to picking up on all of that kind of stuff that's left behind there. I think I cut out the piece, but the next, let me see what's on our list here.
I love that. I cut out a lot of the Vivi stuff, even though it was good. But the next panel that's not on the screen is Wapol looking through a peephole and catching all of this conversation, and they notice him. And the final page is Vivi got kidnapped by Cypherpole, and Wapol just barrels through a wall, and because he's freaking out, they're trying to murk him.
Yeah.
And carries him and Vivi. Vivi just grabs on, and he's just trying to get the fuck away.
Yeah, this is the joy of One Piece, is the first 60% of this chapter is hyper serious, overthrow the government, shadow darkness, main bad guy, killing, one of the good kings, blah, blah, blah. And then it's just like the last, 6 or 7 pages is like Wapol, this goofy ass guy who is literally, maybe we saw him since then, but he originally came from Drum Island, which is like chapter like 140 or something. It's been like 900 chapters since this character was introduced, and now they're like a key.
He's Buggy Light. Like, he's one of the shithead villains that is just caught up in stuff way too big for him, and I love that.
Yeah. I do wonder what is Wapol's part in all of this? Is it just to tell Vivi what he saw so that she knows? Some people are talking about him going to Morgan's, the bird reporter dude, to say what he saw, as a first account witness or whatever. But yeah, I don't know. This is the part that's a little bit less sure of, because this is more of the wild Oda One Piece writing, where it's like you're not going to predict what's going next, because a lot of the comments here were talking about like, I would not have called Wapol being crucial to the key of the sort of climax end of One Piece, but here he is, and here we are.
I love it. We love to see it, and I think it's impossible to predict. It's just there to get Vivi out of this situation. But who knows what happens? One thing I did cut out of here, but I wanted to bring up is that CP9 was telling Vivi what was happening with Reverie, and the Straw Hat Grand Fleet pirates beat the shit out of the Celestial Dragons, and then bragged about it, stating their name and crew. So the Straw Hats are already responsible for ruining Reverie, which is great. And there is also the fight between the two emperors, or not emperors. Gosh, what are they? The commanders.
Admirals?
Admirals.
Yeah, Fujitora and the
Green Bull.
Yeah, Green Bull. I was like the plant dude. Yeah. Because, there was a panel here that was funny that people were talking about, where it's like Fujitora like accidentally frees a bunch of slaves because or something. I don't even remember the context of that, but it happened.
He dropped a meteor, and they're like, "Hey, don't drop a meteor here," Green Bull said, and he dropped a meteor and accidentally freed a bunch of slaves. Which, quote unquote, accident. Fujitora is just a good guy.
Yeah. Fujitora is chaotic good, I think, for sure. Yeah. So,
I actually think he might be the most lawful good in this series, because he just does the right thing regardless.
That's kind of true. Yeah. Is lawful good, and we're not what the world government tells him to do. They kind of tell him where to go, and then he does what he thinks is right when he gets there. So
exactly. Love that character.
Cool. What do we got? Will of D, we talked about Emu, we talked about Gorosei and their powers. Anything else you want to talk about on One Piece here?
No, I think we actually succinctly covered all of it.
Yeah, we actually went through it. I think it helps that we're assuming you are caught up on the rest of what's happened because there's a lot of other stuff going on here. Sabo, I mean, this is the last thing to talk about would be Sabo's situation. What is Sabo's role? Does Sabo have the will of D because he chose to have it? There's that minor flashback in this chapter, right? Or maybe it was last chapter, where he's talking to Luffy and Ace, who both had the will of D already. So yeah, Sabo's kind of a wild card to me. I'm not sure where he fits into all this.
I don't think he does, but I think he's also, like, I'm not discounting him as Luffy and Ace's brother. He definitely is, but I don't know how the will of D works, so I can't say if he has it now. But I don't think so.
Nobody really does, so
yeah,
we can only guess. Cool. I mean, yeah, go read One Piece. Crazy good this week. How long until we get back to what Luffy is doing? I mean, we left Vegapunk on his island, like in the middle of the climax. We have been flashing. This is a flashback, also, I guess.
We're like a side flash.
We've been flashed. I mean, there's another good flashback, right? This one, Sakamoto Days, Dan.
Yeah.
This is a flashback because this is what happened in Reverie. However long, I don't know how long ago, because time
That's right, because
works
Sabo's
weird
with
in One
Dragon
Piece.
and shit right now.
Sabo got home to Dragon. He's telling the story, right? Is what's happening here?
True. Yes.
Yeah.
I think we either flash back to Dragon or we flash back to Vegapunk Island.
I think next chapter might be Vegapunk again, because
it's been a while.
It'll be interesting either way, or it might be like you said. We might flash back to Dragon. In the last half or last couple of pages will be back. Will show us. Oh, we're going back to Luffy and everybody else now. The Straw Hats.
Yeah.
So yeah, One Piece is crazy good. This is a huge lore drop chapter. We'll see you in 3 months when we talk about One Piece again.
Yeah.
Cool.
Hopefully nothing insane happens, like even more insane happens in the meantime, so we can meet our 3-month quota. But
yeah,
we will see.
Did we
if
skip?
It goes
we
too
didn't
crazy,
skip.
we'll break our rules.
Yeah, we didn't skip too much crazy stuff in between. I'm trying to think of what happened. I mean, there was like because the last stuff we did was on like Buggy and Blackbeard, and that was that chapter. So it's actually been like 3 months since we've seen Luffy and his crew. Because the last time we covered it, it wasn't about Luffy and stuff, was it? It was about the Blackbeard stuff and the
Cross Guild stuff.
Cross Guild and all that jazz. So yeah, cool.
Well, cool.
One Piece rocks.
One Piece fucking rocks. Great talk about it.
What else are we doing this week? I'll start with mine. I got a water rower. It's pretty cool. I also want to talk about a little series I mentioned that you weren't reading this. I guess this is like a yandere loves thing. This is called My Girlfriend Gives Me Goosebumps by Shunsuke Ino. This is a weird little thing that's been published. Like, I think there's only 3 or 4 chapters. I wanted to bring it up because I don't really know where else it would fit. It's essentially a guy who is like very bored with life and nothing makes his heart beat very fast. He like will go and ride roller coasters and he's very like numb. But he like runs into this girl one night and like saves her from a dude like attacking her, and it like makes his heart race, and he's like, ooh, that was fun, cool. And so he remembers her. And then like a year later, she shows up at his school and like starts essentially like stalking him, like very much stalking him. And then another girl comes and tells the main guy that's like, listen, she's fucking crazy. Like, she like stalked me at my last school, knew everything about me, like planted bugs on me, did all this crazy wild shit. And as the other girl is telling the main character this, his heart is beating fast. He's like, hell yeah, I'm going to let this girl stalk me and be a yandere because this makes my life exciting. And so I don't remember if he goes and confesses or if she confesses to him and he's like, yes, I will date you. And she's like, what the fuck? Anyways, it's a weird little series, but I wanted to plug it because I think it's kind of interesting. It's an interesting take on the sort of yandere because it's like the guy is like encouraging it and enjoys it, but also doesn't, it like pays attention. He's like, okay, she like planted a bug in my room and that's not good and blah, blah, blah. Or it's like he can like see through all of her lies already. So it's interesting, I think, because it is the main character is like sort of conscious of what kind of character he's dealing with, that he's dealing with this kind of hyper aggressive, I will murder you if you leave me type of character. And he enjoys it in a sense, but also is like, but I don't want to die. So I don't know. It's a really interesting little series. It's only like 3 chapters right now. So go give it a read. I think it's on Manga Plus.
It's the world's most toxic relationship.
It's
who would you say is more toxic in that circumstance? Who's
the girl?
More toxic?
Okay, it's not even close. Maybe the way I'm describing it, the guy seems a little bit more toxic. No, the girl is awful. Like, the girl has like, I'm trying to think of the things she done. The girl like purposely set up to run into his mother over the past like year, like repeatedly, and so he in the last chapter like brings his girlfriend home. And the mom is like, oh my gosh, I know you. You're so wonderful. What are you doing here with my son? And it's like, we're dating. It's like, oh wow, I love that because you're such a wonderful girl because I've run into you so many times, haha, accidentally. And the girl is like, nope, set that all up. She like shows up at his house. She like doesn't know where the guy has not told her where he lives. She like shows up a day after they start dating in front of his house before school to walk to school together. She lives like on the other side of town. She is like the most wild, crazy, insane person in the world. I think that I like this just because the MC is kind of like aware in the same way that the reader is aware of like, this girl is fucking crazy. And I know that none of this is a coincidence. I know that she's planned all of this and he can see through it. And so it's kind of interesting to see how are the characters going to navigate this situation when the guy knows the girl is fucking crazy and the girl is absolutely still just going to act crazy and do wild and crazy things, and where's it going to go? I don't know. It's fun and interesting in a way that I like. So
here's my, and I haven't read this, and here's my argument, my devil's advocate argument to why the guy might be worse, is because she is doing like things that will probably get her to murder someone one day, right? And he's enabling it because he has a serotonin balancing issue and he decided not to go to a psychiatrist and do this instead. Like, holy shit. That's wild. That sounds actually kind of fun. I might read that.
It's only 3 chapters. It's a super light investment. I give it a read. You may or may not like as much as I do. I read it and I don't know. It's just fun and silly and wild. And something about the main character, again, like I said, being aware like the reader is, makes it more interesting. Because usually the yandere thing, the guy's like, oh, I guess you did just happen to know where I live from some random coincidence, or I guess you did just happen to meet my mom. And it's like, no, this guy's like, this was planned. You planted a bug in my room. I know that you planned this all out. None of this is an accident. And the girl tries to play it all off like an accident. And I don't know. It's just really fun. So,
on my end, I don't got much. I just played a ton of Zelda. Yeah. I think I know Life more than anyone I know. Because I took a week off of work
for it, but yeah.
Yeah,
I've also slowed down the last week just because I had other things to do, but...
Yeah, no, totally. I have not. So, it's been crazy. I am still very much enjoying the game. I think it's hard to be a game after I have just played Elden Ring and still be an apple in my eyes, but Zelda is managed. So, great job, Zelda.
It's so good.
You're fucking great.
It's so good. Cool.
But yeah, that's all I got.
Awesome. Yeah, I mean, a little bit of a shorter episode, even though it was One Piece, but I'm down with it. I think we covered it pretty succinctly. Mm-hmm. Thank you, everyone, for listening or watching. Don't forget to check out the YouTube channels White, Gray, Black for more condensed content. And don't forget the podcast channel is WGB Weekly Manga Podcast. You can search either of those on YouTube, and they should appear at or near the top. If you just want to listen to us as a podcast, we are on all the major podcast providers. If you want to support us, the best thing you can do is give us a like or a follow or the little bell on the podcast distributor or YouTube of your choice. Whatever positive reinforcement they offer, go and do them. That's the best way to support us. We don't really want your money. We really just want 90 minutes of your time every week. So just, press a single button. Best thing you can do. If you do really want to help out, head on over to the Patreon at patreon.com/WGBmanga, where you can hear some bonus episodes we've got. But again, just giving us more eyes and ears is a great way to support us. It's free and it's low effort. Check me out on Twitter at WGBmanga if you want to suggest something or chat with me about what we've talked about on the episode, or leave a comment in the YouTube comments. It's another great way. As always, thank you so much for being with us this week. Thanks for sitting through our One Piece talks and everything else.
Yeah, it was a blast. Goodbye, everyone.
Don't forget to read more manga.